The bones didn't look like anything that should exist. Scientists working in China in the early 2000s kept pulling feathered fossils out of ancient rock that had no name, no category, no place in the existing picture of prehistoric life. They had the skeleton of a dinosaur, the feathers of a bird, the teeth of a reptile, and the wishbone of a chicken, all in the same animal. Researchers spent months arguing over what to even call them, and the reason the argument never fully resolved is that the line between dinosaur and bird turns out not to exist. There is no crossing point, no single moment where one thing became the other. There's only a slow change, and it runs from T-Rex on one end to the birds outside your window on the other. What the asteroid actually did 66 million years ago wasn't kill the dinosaurs. It killed the large ones. And the difference between those two statements is the entire story. When the impact happened, the destruction was instant across a huge portion of the planet. But what came after was slower and far more complete. Dust and ash blasted into the upper atmosphere and blocked the sun across the entire Earth. Not for a few weeks, but for years. Plants couldn't grow without sunlight. They died everywhere. Every animal that depended on plants to survive started running out of food. And the bigger you were, the faster you starved. For 160 million years, being large had been the single greatest advantage a land animal could have. Almost overnight, it became the thing most likely to get you killed. But here's what the standard telling of this story almost always leaves out. The survivors weren't just small animals that happened to scrape through. They had an almost specific combination of traits that seemed almost built for exactly this disaster. Small bodies that didn't need much food to keep going. And beaks. Tough, light, highly efficient beaks that could crack open hard seeds buried in ash and soil. Seeds that could survive years underground without light or warmth. Seeds that nothing else left alive on Earth had the right anatomy to eat. The animals that made it through weren't desperate creatures adapting under pressure. They were already specialists, and the catastrophe happened to destroy everything except the one food source they were already built for. Those animals were theropod dinosaurs. Small, feathered, beaked theropod dinosaurs that any of us would look at today and immediately call birds. Now here is where the fossil record produces something researchers genuinely didn't expect to find. For a long time the assumption was that the huge variety of birds alive today developed slowly, across tens of millions of years of gradual change. The actual data doesn't support that at all. In the 10 million years right after the impact, bird groups didn't slowly recover. They exploded. From a single ancestor, new species branched off and spread at a pace that has almost no equal anywhere in the entire fossil record. Every gap the dead giants left behind got filled. Forests, coastlines, open ocean, wetlands, deserts. Each place pulled a different body into existence. Different beak shape, different wings, different size. The catastrophe didn't just allow birds to survive. It handed them an empty world and the pressure to fill it as fast as life could move. The extinction was the engine. The emptiness was the fuel. But the deeper you push into the timeline, the stranger the picture becomes. The shrinking didn't begin with the asteroid. There's a clear, measurable trend running through T-Rex's own branch of the family tree of steadily getting smaller across roughly 50 million years before the impact. Generation by generation, certain dinosaurs were getting lighter. Their bones were becoming more hollow. Their arms were growing longer relative to their bodies. Their feathers were spreading. For years, scientists noticed this trend without a convincing explanation for it. Then the answer arrived, and it reframed the whole story. The shrinking was being driven by the slow buildup of features linked to flight. Not because these animals were trying to fly. Evolution doesn't try anything. But the ones that happened to be slightly smaller and slightly more feathered survived a little better across millions of years of ordinary life. Food shortages, predators, cold weather. Each generation, a small advantage compounding into something enormous. By the time the asteroid hit, one group of dinosaurs had been quietly shrinking for longer than mammals have existed in roughly their current form. When the impact came, every branch of the dinosaur family that hadn't been doing this was wiped out. The one that had was already halfway to being a bird. What this means for the animals we think we know is genuinely disorienting. The real Velociraptor was roughly the size of a large turkey, covered in feathers across most of its body. It had a wishbone, the exact same fused bone in the chest found in every living bird today. Its bones were hollow in the same way bird bones are hollow. Its lungs moved air in a continuous one-way loop rather than in and out like our lungs do, which is precisely how bird lungs work and is one of the most efficient breathing systems evolution has ever produced. The famous killing claw and the long stiff tail are basically the main things separating it from something you might watch land on a fence post. The gap between Velociraptor and a modern hawk is far smaller than the gap between Velociraptor and T. Rex, even though both of them shared the same world at roughly the same time. T. Rex itself had hollow bones. It had a wishbone. Animals from its own close family show clear signs of feathers, and the case that T. Rex had some too has been building for 2 decades. Its closest living relatives, by every measurement modern science has, are not lizards or crocodiles. They are chickens and ostriches. That is not a comparison. That is what the bones and the biology all point to when you run the analysis, without assumptions. The whole picture of dinosaurs as slow, cold-blooded, scale-covered giants belongs to the 1800s, and the fossil record has spent the last 30 years taking it apart piece by piece. The animals in the rock look almost nothing like that image. They look like birds that grew enormous in some family lines and stayed small in others, and when the world ended, the enormous ones vanished and the small ones inherited everything left behind. There are around 10,000 species of bird alive on Earth right now, on every continent, including Antarctica. More species than all living mammals combined. Every single one of them is a theropod dinosaur by any honest classification. The asteroid didn't end the dinosaurs. It compressed them down to the version that could survive the worst event in the history of animal life. And then that version ran.